have to read that script for an hour. I mean, you cannot be asleep at 4 p.m. And then I scheduled an opera right after. I have to do something. Watch TV. As you say, wow, night to night. I did that last night. Didn't work. I was just beside myself this morning, waking up at the crack of dawn. When is Perry back? What did they say? I think he went to go. He said he had to go get his tune with his third eye. I said I got a third eye. It's plastic. I did not say that to Steelers. Oh, I got a new one yesterday. I got a brand new one. Glasses, no? No, I got new glasses and a new eye. Wear a prosthetic. That is a prosthetic. I've been blind since birth. My left eye. He paints it for me. It's a whole field. So good. Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome. Hi, so good to see you. Oh, we just go with the Bollywood. That's all be a lot of fun. Who wants to do Gandhi, right? No. People are having fun. So my name is Dr. Veena Howard. I'm a professor and chair in the Department of Philosophy and also director of the M.K. Gandhi Center. So first, we'd like to introduce my really esteemed dean, Dr. Nora Chapman, Dean of College of Arts and Humanities. She has been my support in every event, every project, every research project that I do. So I want to invite her and welcome you all. Dean Chapman. So I'm so appreciative personally that you all are here to enjoy the amazing program that Dr. Veena Howard has put together for us tonight and tomorrow. Dr. Howard is a tremendous scholar and an amazing teacher. And because of her scholarship, Fresno State has been blessed with not one, but two major endowments that allow us to provide this incredible programming. The first was a Jain and Hindu Dharma endowed chair, which Dr. Howard holds. And the second is the M.K. Gandhi Center, Inner Peace and Sarvodaya. Each of these donor-driven initiatives allows us to focus on Dharma, the quest for truth, inner peace, the quest for basically feeling balanced, which was something incredibly important, especially after the pandemic. And then Sarvodaya, which should be Fresno State's middle name. Why? Because upliftment is what we do. We not only uplift 25,000 undergraduates and graduate students through a world-class education on this beautiful campus, but on top of it, we offer more community service by an order of magnitude that is extraordinary throughout the entire CSU system. We provided last year 1.6 million hours of service. The entire rest of the CSU 21 campuses was able to produce about 400,000 hours at the most. So think about that. Think about what everyone in this room who works at Fresno State or engages us by providing opportunities for service learning and volunteering, by teaching our students like Dr. Rosenhagen how to think about peace
and how to make it possible in this world. And of course, Emma Hughes from criminology, who is doing the same thing. We have amazing colleagues across campus, and we are so honored tonight to have Perry Garfinkel with us, sharing his wisdom, because he not only has memories of mother's mahjong, but he also has a great deal to share with us tonight about Gandhi. So without further ado, I would like to thank Dr. Howard for inviting Perry Garfinkel.
Thank you, Dean Chapman. You always are so eloquent and inspiring for me. Thank you. And thank you to see all of you who came this afternoon, and I know it's such a busy time. So my events, I want to make students center of my events. And so I'm very honored to ask one of my students who has, this is his second class with me, and I'm just so inspired by his questions, his just attention in class, and what he brings to the entire course. All of my students, Jake also, all of you. So don't feel, Elizabeth, everybody. Don't say I have favorite ones. I said all of you my favorites. So I want to invite William Asamoga for saying a few words, reflections on this topic and what we do at Fresno State. Please join me in welcoming him.
Good evening, everyone. Yep. My name is William Asamuga. I decided to pursue a degree in philosophy of religious studies right around the same time my daughter was born, which is around 2 years ago. The idea of becoming a parent inspired me to take a closer look at the religious frameworks that shaped me since childhood. Toward the end of my high school years, before joining the military, I found myself intrigued by the concept of love in action and how Eastern religious traditions express this force. This is my second semester, not only express this force, but the concepts of nonviolence and Atman, a no self, have stuck with me since. Fast forward, this is my second semester, taking a course with Dr. Howard, Chair, Department of the Philosophy Department. The first course being the Eastern Religious Traditions course, which formally introduced me to teachings of Jainism and the principle of ahimsa, nonviolence, the teachings of Hinduism and the concept of dharmic duty, the sacred symbols associated with Sikhism, and the Buddha's teachings on enlightenment through the Eightfold Path. This spring, I've had the privilege of attending Dr. Howard's Philosophy 170T senior seminar course. This is a philosophy and healing lesson, the first of its kind here at Fresno State. This class explores practical wisdom of historical figures like Marcus Aurelius, Boethius, and Mahatma Gandhi, as well as some protagonists like Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita and the Brahmin son Siddhartha, written by Hermann Hesse. I feel as though the course couldn't have arrived at more of an ideal time for me. From dealing with the recent death of a family pet to managing my mental, physical, and emotional health in a society full of distractions and a rising cost of living. Not to mention recent issues concerning the great Cesar Chavez's legacy and the decisions being made by our current political leaders. I'm finding a growing sense of solidarity in Gandhi's teachings, especially his embrace of simplicity and ahimsa, which when practiced in my life have been incredible. The question of how to navigate these times peacefully, constructively, and in ways that generate solutions rather than problems, unity rather than division, has become increasingly influential to my thinking. I'm finding the readings and course material to be both relevant and deeply practical. I find it incredibly valuable to have Dr. Howard, a Gandhi scholar, as an instructor. She reminds us and this happened in our last class, she reminds us that even with more than 400 books on Gandhi, we have authors like Perry Garfinkel who were able to offer new and meaningful insights. So with that, I want to say thank you, Dr. Howard, and thank you, Perry.
They make us proud, don't they? They're just amazing. You don't know how they are thinking about classes, how they're processing it. So it's beautiful to see. Thank you, William. And his family is coming too. He has 2 little children, so it'll be great to see them too. So I want to introduce our speaker for today, Perry Garfinkel. He has been contributing to many sections of the New York Times for 30 plus years. A former newspaper and magazine editor for the Boston Globe, Start Ledger, New Jersey, and Echo Level magazine. He has authored 4 books, one of the national bestsellers, Buddha or Bust. The latest becoming Gandhi, which Publishers Weekly listed among the top 10 books of 2024 in the spirituality category, and now published in 5 countries. His work has appeared in National Geographic magazine, the AARP magazine, Travel and Leisure, Psychology Today, Huffington Post, and many others. An avid traveler, 35 countries and counting. As a working journalist, he has gone to and written about India every year since 2004, since recently. He has previously appeared on CNN, CBS, This Morning, and other TV show news. So please help me welcoming this very eminent journalist, Perry Garfinkel.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to use this mic.
This one.
Oh, yeah?
But maybe
This one.
1 second.
One, two, three. Test. So I'm going to start off, thanks to Veena, Dr. Howard, for inviting me. I wrote to her almost 2 years ago when she was in India on a sabbatical and research Fulbright. It was kind of amazing to me that, I don't know, a few months ago we were back in touch. We've been planning this for several months. I've never been to Fresno. I live down the hill from UC Berkeley, and I didn't know what to expect here. This campus is amazing, and I would love to come back. I'm even thinking about seeing if I could teach here. The community I've met, people just on the street, everyone seems too nice. Very nice. I'm going to start with a little line from Gandhi, which will set up the rest of what I'm going to talk about. My life is my message. That was one of Gandhi's lines, and I took that really to heart because as a working journalist, and I'm really just a good reporter, a working journalist and an author, I'm an experiential journalist. Like, I have to go there, have to see it, have to participate in it, and sort of leads up to this book. Here, this is better. Is this better now? So journalists have mastered the art of pitching. So when you pitch a story, you need several components. Why now? Why me? And in this case, why Gandhi? And in due time, over the next 30, 40 minutes, I'm going to answer all those questions. I request that I'm very participatory, but I request that you give me like 30 minutes to warm up and, give you the whole shtick, the whole story, and then I would love interaction and see who you are, where you come from, and why actually you're here. So the question is, what's a nice Jewish guy from New Jersey doing writing a book about Gandhi? Who experimenting with the guiding principles of this little Indian guy with the big ears and the wire-rimmed glasses. that always remind me of John Lennon, who was born in 1869, 100 years before me. And so why me? First, let me start with why me, because my little ego wants to tell you a little about me as backdrop. Why I'm here, even why I'm writing this book. It was maybe the late 60s, early 70s. India was in the air. Yoga classes were being offered in basements of Christian and Catholic church, which I always thought was an interesting disconnect, but an indication that this wisdom from the East was not wrapped in the cloth of saffron robes or any institution of religion. It was open to everyone. And I learned that more and more when I wrote this book, Buddha or Bust. So I was, gurus were on the cover of Time magazine. Research was beginning to emerge, legitimate scientific research about the values of meditation. I don't know how much you know about mindfulness, and mindfulness-based stress reduction is what it's called. Maybe you're not taking the psychology courses, but I interviewed and knew John Kabat-Zinn, who was the founder and introduced this term mindfulness as a way to get around the orange saffron robes, because mindfulness is basically Buddhism-based. There's pieces of Hinduism because they're all intertwined in my mind. So then a book fell into my lap. It must have been 1971. I'm older than I look. And this book was called Be Here Now, by a Harvard psychologist named Richard Alpert, who went to India. He had been taking LSD and all kinds of hallucinogenic drugs. And he went to India and he met this guru, Nim Karoli Baba, around whom this book was written. How many people are familiar with the book Be Here Now? Okay, 5 people. I highly recommend it. It became an underground bestseller, sold millions of copies in many countries. He was a mentor of mine, and eventually he became the godfather of my daughter. So I was close to him. He taught us that maybe he drew us into Hinduism, and then after a while he said, a lot of people who were following him and going to his workshops and classes and meditation retreats happened to be Jewish. There was Joseph Goldstein, Jack Kornfield, Sharon Salzberg, Mark Epstein, who wrote a great book called Thoughts Without a Thinker. And he said, Hinduism and Judaism are too much alike in a way. You need to still your mind, not, not filled with the ideas of thousands of gods and really millions of gods, and still your mind, which for a Jewish person is very hard to do. But he led us to Buddhism, and that was a little opening door. It was 1972, a certain president was reelected. This was like right after the Vietnam War, during the Vietnam War, and we had decided, my then wife and I, that if Nixon got reelected, we were leaving the country. And we almost literally opened a map with this idea of India in the background. It was like the most exotic, alien, far away from Western culture as you could get in the 70s. And we almost literally, put our fingers around a map and landed on India, and we took off for India. She wanted to meet Nim Karoli Baba, the guru. I was more a Kipling-esque adventurer, and I thought, wow, India, it's going to be far out, as we used to say. It was definitely far away, and I played drums my whole life, so that's a little footnote that is of import. And I thought, oh, I'll go to India and study tabla. And as it turned out, I did fall into a tabla teacher. So it was 1973, I guess, and we went to India. And this picture, we have this now? Yeah. This is the beginning of my story, of my India story, which is the beginning of my story with new eyes. This is Panchu Maharaj. And this is me as skinny as I ever was in my life, except for that next picture of me along the Salt March. Benares is the most sacred city in India. It's on the Ganges River. How many people are familiar with what Benares means? No. Okay, this is like a 101. Hello? Hello? Okay. Sorry. Did you miss any of that? Did I have you at hello? So when we were so into Hinduism, when we went there, I literally walked past some of the famous Buddhist sites and locations, like in Sarnath. There's a famous place where the Buddha was. But I was Hindu. I was Jewish Hindu. And as I got more into Buddhism and then came back to Gandhi, I just began to realize that there's a great line from a reggae song, and I'll say it in the reggae accent: all them isms causes schisms. So I really believe in the unity of all religions. And it kind of comes back to Gandhi because, where's the gentleman who opened the talk there? Yeah, love, ahimsa, these are traditions that, in the best of all the religions, are fundamental to them. Judaism is a religion based on ethical value systems. And as I, again, came back to the East, and I've heard this from others, that it brought me back to my Western ideas. I'm Jewish, I know a good corned beef sandwich. That's culturally Jewish. I was bar mitzvahed, and then I had a falling out with my own tradition because it felt like Judaism wasn't experiential in my mind. And what the teacher Ram Dass showed me, and also the practice of meditation, is the practice itself is the message. If you can sit still and watch your mind and watch thoughts going by, it all brings you back to this basic sense that we are all together, that you are part of this cosmos, to use the phrase, universality. So our plan, we went to India, we were inspired. Tabla taught me that of the interconnectedness of sound and rhythm. And while I was in India, every sound fit into a tal. A tal is a 16-beat measure. And I would hear dogs barking and it fit into this 16-beat measure. And we came back from India and our plan was to win the lottery and go back to India. Seriously, we were living in Massachusetts. The lottery had just been instituted. Needless to say, I made $30 once. And it took from the early 70s to 2004 to finally go back to India for the first time. I had a major assignment from National Geographic magazine which was to explore why Buddhism had grown so popular in the West. And I convinced them that I had to go to the East to find that answer. And my angle, every writer needs an angle, was this new and emerging branch of Buddhism called socially engaged Buddhism. And that all fits into this story about justice, peace, finding a way, basically, that we can all get along. So those years I was on assignment for the Geographic. I went from India. I went to the place in India where it's actually Nepal, where it said the Buddha was born. I did the whole journey. I went to Thailand, China, Tibet. I interviewed the Dalai Lama, and that's how I got him to write the big blurb in my book and the forward to my book. So that's sort of my India story. India has remained in my life in some ways that I had never expected. This book came out of that. I went every year from 2004 to the pandemic. In fact, I was in India when we heard about this novel virus. It was like February 10th. And I had to go to South Africa, and I'll explain why. When I came home, the whole world shut down. I would plan to go to England, where Gandhi had spent time, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Needless, all to say, I'm very connected to India. I worked for the Taj Hotels to write a book for them. I just ghost wrote a book for a famous chef, which just came out, called Biting Off More Than I Can Chew. I was a brand consultant to the Maharaja of Udaipur, one of the most beautiful cities in India. And I have what I could admit is a love-hate relationship with India. It's like I can't get it out of me, and sometimes when I'm there, I just want to shake India by the shoulders and say, you're such brilliant people, you're so loving, you can feel spiritual kindness in the back alleys, and yet, you know, people complain about things like infrastructure, or as you say, infrastructure. And it's, you wonder why then in the 70s, it wasn't the powerhouse that is becoming again. It's not a third world country. It was when we went there in the 70s. And now it's a major player in the world. I can say now, which will lead me to Gandhi, that I'm a spiritual expeditionary. I have been involved in these three great religions. I've not studied Islam, and I think that might be my next project. How this book came about is a little background, and then we'll get into the nuts and bolts of Gandhi. After this book came out, Buddha or Bust, and some copies, by the way, are for sale here. I have a bunch of these for sale, cheap, $20. You can't get it in a bookstore. My agent, after the success of this book, it was a national bestseller, she said, how about Gandhi? And I said, well, who, what, who, why? He's a bronze piece in a museum. There's nothing relevant about Gandhi today. And I was so wrong. And that's why I'm standing here today, in fact. I read some of his books. I especially read his autobiography, My Experiment with the Truth. And the subtitle of my book echoes the experiment part. Having read some of his books, I was kind of turned off. He was a lawyer. He wrote, you know, with a lawyer's arm's length, a little dry. And I said to my agent, I don't know. Then President Obama had credited Gandhi, not Martin Luther King, with setting his moral compass. He had a picture of Gandhi in his Senate office in Illinois. And I thought, And then when I read more, I realized that Gandhi had inspired Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, Cesar Chavez, the great leaders, the great spiritual political leaders. Mind you, Gandhi was never a politician. And for that reason, I'm not going to talk about the political pros and cons of Mahatma Gandhi as the father of the nation. My focus was, after reading his books and many others, it just seemed like they all fell into two categories. Either way devotional, which didn't have the objectivity that a journalist like me, required, or they were scholarly. Not to discredit my mentor, my new mentor. There's room for that, and there's an important place for that. But I'm the experiential journalist. I had to, what is that line? I'm from Missouri, you got to show me. I had to go touch, feel, and see what it was like to try to be Gandhi. And to achieve that, I went in two directions. One is I literally followed in his footsteps. So I went to the place where he was born, Porbandar, in Gujarat. And in all my years of going to India, I'd never been to that state. It's funny because I only found out it's a dry state once I arrived there. And it was good timing because I had sworn off of alcohol as well as meat. And my other experience with the Gujaratis, I was at the Taj Hotel in Mumbai, and I was with some media people. And off in the corner, like by that exit door, I heard some loud people. And I asked, who are those people? And she said, oh, they must be Gujaratis. They talk very loud. I didn't find that to be entirely true, but, and you know, President Modi is from Gujarat. So he's a Gandhi fan when it's appropriate, if I said that right. But the more I got into it, the more I realized there was a lot to learn about Mahatma Gandhi. So on the one hand, I went to India. I went to South Africa, where he spent 25 years of his life, which many, many people don't even know about. But those were the formative years where he came up with his theories of satyagraha and ahimsa. He did a lot of research, and he played an active part in helping the Indians living in South Africa to attempt to become free of the oppression that they had faced from the white South Africans. The other side, which is what I want to impart, is how do you become Gandhi? How do I follow the 6 principles that I chose and that many people have selected to live the moral life with integrity and purpose? So I'll say those, and I'm going to repeat them throughout the afternoon here. That's nonviolence, which most people associate with Gandhi, as you said. Tell me your name again. William. Such an easy name. William. Nonviolence is I think nonviolence and truth are the 2 main pillars of the Gandhian belief system. Then there's faith, very important. There's simplicity, with William you also mentioned, and I'm going to talk about. There's vegetarianism, which I'll also talk about. And then the last is celibacy, which is kind of random in a way, in my mind, to what living a moral life is about. Because in my tradition, my birth tradition in Judaism, rabbis can procreate, and in other Christian religions it's true. Catholicism, the Catholic priests are not supposed to have sex. I'll just say that. So those 6, and that's what we're going to work with today. Because as I said, I want this to be interactive. So my book, I should say originally, after doing all this research, interviewing a few hundred people, I'd say, all over India, all over South Africa, I interviewed 6 Gandhi descendants, from his great-great-grandson to his grandson, mostly grandsons. Ella Gandhi is also his granddaughter. She's in South Africa. And I had a lot of interesting encounters that I'm going to share a few of. So I had this idea that I would become Gandhi, imbibe him, inhabit him. And as I got a few months into this, I realized there's no way to be Gandhi. And I changed the title of the book to what you see now, because I think we can only be in the process of becoming. There's a great line, in fact, from Bob Dylan, of all people, in the beginning of my Buddhism book, and I'm going to read it to you, because I think it's an interesting way to think of the journey of life. Where is it? Hold on. Time out. Where are they? An artist has got to be careful never really to arrive at a place where he thinks he's at somewhere. You always have to realize that you're constantly in a state of becoming. As long as you can stay in that realm, you'll sort of be all right, in the voice of Bob Dylan. And I, as a writer, as a creative person, I also play drums, I said, you're always working on your stuff. And, you know, whether it's playing paradiddles, or in my case, you know, writing voraciously sometimes, or as a human being, you know, you're always trying to improve. There's no arriving. In fact, there's a saying in Buddhism, in Zen Buddhism, if you see the Buddha in the road, kill him. And there's many interpretations of that. My interpretation is, if you think you've arrived, if you think you know Buddha, you haven't. It's like the discussion of truth, and we'll get into that in a minute, but there's absolute truth and ultimate truth. And if you think you have understanding of absolute truth, you don't. It's like yin and yang. It's like the Kabbalah of Judaism, the two becoming one. It's always two becoming. It's never two merged as one. So I took on this project kind of naively, and I dived into it. And let me show this. So in South Africa, Gandhi created his first ashram. It was a community. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. So I bought this and about 3 other T-shirts that were for sale, and they went to fundraising for the ashram there, Phoenix Settlement. This is one of them. I like it. I was going to wear it, but then I thought I better look a little like a teacher. So I'm not sure I'm going to tell all the stories about my journeys, except when they sprinkle in. But let's take them one by one. And I want you to imagine this as a workshop and think for yourselves when I trot these out. So, truth. Okay, let's start with nonviolence, because that is like the world's problem. Today again, there's another war. So how do we ourselves as individuals, taking Gandhi's message and try to at least live less violently? Because the teachings of the great ones is find yourself within and let it emanate out. If you can be peaceful unto yourself, within yourself, when you talk to someone, you spread peace. If you're agitated and aggressive, or worse yet, passive aggressive, which I used to be accused of before I got enlightened, that's not going to feed the idea of peace. Gandhi struggled with what to call it. Is it nonviolent protest? Is it passive resistance? I always felt that what he came up with was nonviolence. As a journalist and a former PR guy, you're not supposed to use negativity, because what happens, we were just talking about non-veg, veg and non-veg. First, makes you think of the non part. So non-violent, you first have to think, what is the paradigm of violence? Then you have to walk back from that. So if it called it peace, that would be more to my liking. But let's talk about some literal things you can do for yourself to imbibe and reflect peace, and then spread it out. So I myself took on a few things. I realized a few things. One is, let's start with this one. I sometimes do speak with a passive-aggressive voice. My dad taught me the great art of sarcasm, which seems to be a tradition of my original religion. But that contained within that aggression, passive aggression. So you're saying something with an ironic twist, but again, you think the irony, you think the negative thing before you can go to the positive thing. So I went to a workshop involved with nonviolent communication, NVC. You should, if you're taking notes, look that up. NVC, it's a movement, psychologists and communicators have found that there's a way to communicate that involves not pointing the finger. Couples who, invoke, you did this, no, you did that. you get into this fight with each other. And nonviolent communication, as the title is called, helps you learn how your own speech contains vibes, it's a clinical word, vibes of negativity, i.e. aggression. That was one thing. Another thing is I realized that since I was a kid, watching cowboys and Indians shoot arrows and rifles into each other, and we'd see, you know, my Saturday morning was watching Death and Dying on the cowboy movies and the cartoons. You see this kind of murder in your life from an early age, you get numb to it. So by later, you know, you're watching the war in Vietnam, or now it's the war in Iran, and there's a distance, like you have to inure yourself to the reality that there are people dying in front of your eyes. You have to absorb that, and so you bring on a little of this violence. So I systematically, I'm a journalist, so I have to follow the news if I want to be current. I would systematically almost ration myself the news. During the early stages of the Trump administration, I was glued to CNN. And then I realized I needed to wean myself from that. And I feel like I need to do it again. I have felt like that. But so I eliminated too much news. One of the things I learned from this is the word tapering. Like all these things I'm going to talk about, you can't go full bore into becoming, you know, Gandhi, spiritually enlightened. So if you tone down any of these, you're making a step in the right direction. Tapering was a term that came to me from of all people, my rheumatologist. I had a autoimmune dysfunction called polymyalgia rheumatica, and he prescribed prednisone. How many people have ever taken prednisone? You don't have to answer that, but you know who you. So it's like an evil pill that is a magic pill that makes arthritic pain go away. But I started on 20 pills a day, and I tapered down. Now I'm like at 4. And this is 10 years later. My disease morphed into something else. But I realized I could do that with learning how to live like Gandhi. So I tapered down watching violent news. I tapered down watching movies that are all about violence. One of my favorite movies, you're in the back, you read my book, is, I should test you, Gladiator, the Russell Crowe movie. It's a study of, you know, power and paranoia. But you see a lot of people get killed, from the opening scene of the barbarians getting murdered left and right. You see blood flying. But I was so enamored with the acting and the story that I realized when I got into Gandhi, I could not watch that movie and be quite fine. And you could pick up your own movie. All those Tarantino movies, out. So I did that. I did the nonviolent communication. And then I looked at myself, and I realized that I commit acts of violence on myself, in myself, that no one else sees. I curse myself out when I spill milk. And I beat myself up, even the term, I beat myself up over this and that. And I slowly came, because I am kind of klutzy since I was a kid. I think my marriage ended because I was so klutzy, and she couldn't stand that. But over time, I became patient with myself. And it's like spilled milk, you wipe it up and you move on. You come to accept this part of yourself, and don't beat yourself up. Accept that this is who you are and move forward. The milk gets cleaned, next. What else did I do? Violence, nonviolence. I think those are a few to work with. Truth. Again, I looked at the superficial level of truth. I lied about my age to certain women. I did my very first book was called In a Man's World, Psychological Study of Male Dyads, what we learn from men in our lives. And what I found that men lie about their height and their income. and women lie about their age and their weight. We do this to ourselves. We create little lies. I feel that we wake up every day and invent ourselves. It's a little lie we tell ourselves to tell other people. So today I'm in a nice sport jacket and I'm this guy. Tonight I'm in sweats in my bedroom or my hotel room and I'm another guy. Every day you put on, they call it, you put on your armor. The three-piece suit is armor. The nice women wear pantsuits to work. That's armor. When you go home, you can't wait to put on your house, what's it called? House robe, house dress. Psychologically, egotistically, we create our persona. A lot of it is a reflection of who we think people see us as. So it's like it's like a mirror within a mirror, a mirror looking at a mirror, looking at a mirror. I am who you think I am, and I become who you think I am. And then I am not that person, but I take on the role because it seems to be working. Oh, you like me because I wrote a book. I write for the New York Times. That ain't me, babe. It ain't me, babe. But this is the kind of truth we make up every single day. So just to look at that and examine it and say, this is happening, is a little moment of enlightenment. And then the lies you tell to others, you taper down. You don't tell people you're 57 when you're 77. Not that that's my age. So these are like playing with the truth. I was trained to use the internet when I was working for Rodale Press in Pennsylvania. They published men's health books, Men's Health Magazine, Walking, a lot of health magazines. And the internet came on in 1995, big time. And we were trained how to read websites for authentication, for authentication, corroboration. You look at the bottom of the website. Who put this together? What are the sources? So now it's crazy how much misinformation, lies are being told on a website. My niece has long form Lyme disease, and she trots out this information. She's anti-doctors per se. And I said, Carrie, where are you getting this information? She said, Reddit. You're familiar with Reddit? It's like a chat room, and there's no verification. So that's not good. I, as a journalist, we're trained to get 3 sources. Jesus said, when 2 or more are gathered in my name, the journalist needs 3 gathered in the name of truth. And what is the truth? That's up to you. Like I also learned that journalism is supposed to be objective. It's never objective. I go out and report a story, and I gather information, and I put it on the table, and I'm the one who decides what facts fit into the theory I want to create. There's like 5 things that say one thing, 5 things that say something else. It's left to me to decide where lies the truth. And I'm the holder of the truth. And there are tricks of the trade, like you can cite this person and cite that person. At the end of the story, you can say, basically in other fancy words, it's up to you, reader, to decide, here's the facts. But if you read some of the adjectives and some of the verbs, they're leaning towards your personal theory. So there's no objectivity now in journalism, and it's worse than ever. Used to be, now I'm really dating myself, the man America trusted the most, of some of my elders. Who was the man America trusted the most? Walter Cronkite. Who said that? You're too young to know that. Walter Cronkite, what was he, NBC, CBS? I don't even remember, but he was the man America trusted because he delivered the news. Now there's no news, there's just opinion. I used to watch CNN all the time. I can't watch that, just as I can't watch Fox. I have to go find my own sources that I trust. The other thing I want to say about truth before I move forward is Gandhi taught me to understand the levels of truth. So these truths that I'm talking about so far are the kind of baseline truths. The big truth is really about God, absolute truth, ultimate truth. This is the understanding of how the universe was put together. I can't put it into words. I was telling Vina as we were driving over here, this is hard to talk about because there aren't words to describe the person, the entity we call God. Everyone has a different name, Allah, Ishmael. But absolute truth is the universe, is an understanding that those seers will say are beyond the ability of us lower beings to understand. It's so high, ultimate. It's the ultimate truth. So as I ponder this, and there is a Zen koan, is the unanswerable question. The theory is in that Zen tradition, if you think about the answers to something so long that you finally can't answer it, you have like an infinity, a moment of nirvana, nibbana, enlightenment. And we, nobody in this room has reached that level, or you'd be hovering over the room here. But I think, again, to ponder it is the beginning of becoming who you want to be. Let's think about this on a deeper level. This is what this book taught me. Let's move on. Faith, let's tackle faith. I wondered, what is faith? Again, my inquiring mind really wondered, well, how do I define it? How did Gandhi define it? Gandhi was a Hindu. He was a Vaishnavas. That's it? Say it? Vaishnavas, which is a Orthodox branch of Judaism that his mother practiced. How does little Perry take this on? So I thought, let me go to elders in my community. And, there's research that says we've lost faith. People don't go to church as much. So I took a 2-mile radius of where I lived in Berkeley, California, and I went to the spiritual leaders of about 5 of these. I think I found 22 in a 2-mile radius of where I lived. And they're there. They're there for you to get, to take advantage of, to practice. So this idea that we've lost our spiritual essence, our faith, you can disprove that by going to these places. But I went to these men. They were all men, one woman. She was the head of a Unitarian Universalist church. And I said, what is faith? And what I found was kind of frustrating. Like it was like what is that called? Tautology? Like the answer was the question. Faith is having faith in something. In most of these cases, it was God, this absolute that we cannot even grasp in our simple minds, even the Einsteins. And so I realized the problem therein. I'm going to tell a side story that I wasn't planning to tell. When I wrote Buddha or Bust, I was traveling around India, and I interviewed a nun, a Catholic nun, at a school in New Delhi, and I had heard that she uses mindfulness meditation as part of her curriculum for kids, 6th graders. And so I went to one of these classes, and the kids are all fidgety, but they tried. They tried to sit still. I'm sure they were like going crazy inside. And then I interviewed her after, and I said, why? You're Catholic? Why are you bringing Buddhist mindfulness meditation into schools? It was Goenka. Goenka's teachings were very popular in India. And she told me this story, the very sad story that Catholic nun, she had breast cancer. She had a breast removed, and that made her lose faith. She said, "I lost faith in Jesus. I lost faith in Jesus." And she had a falling out with God because how could this happen to me? And she went on a mindfulness meditation retreat in the Buddhist tradition. And she said it brought her back to her Catholic belief system, because when you kind of take all the robes off of any practice and just sit with it, it brings you always back to the universality of our condition, our human condition. And she came to some understanding, and it brought her back to the Catholic Church. It's a side story, but it made me realize again, Gandhi himself practiced his Hindu practice. What's the word I'm looking for? Assiduously? He was a real practitioner of his faith up until the end. And I realized, again, we can find a way to practice our faith. I'm not joking when I say this, I'm a Leo, that my astrological sign is Leo. And I never got it because I'm not a leader. I kind of lead myself. And then I said, oh, I'm a leader of myself. And that's, I have faith in myself. If I take on something, I'm going to go for it. And even if I fail, I'm going to keep going for it. And I think faith is like that. Gandhi is an example. He was pushed away. You know the story of how he was kicked off a train in South Africa? How many don't know this story? So I won't. So he was traveling first class in South Africa, on behalf of a Muslim businessman who had brought him over. And he was told that dark people can't sit in first class. And he said, no, I have a ticket. Look. They didn't listen to it, and they kicked him off the train. I went to that station, Pietermaritzburg, and it's now a testament to Gandhi and his ability to get up, sit in that waiting room all night. He went to jail. He was tried and sent to jail, like, boom, boom, you're in jail. And he was brought out by his boss, and he said, this is not right. I'm going to work on behalf of all Indians in Africa. So, faith. What else we can talk about? Simplicity. I want to talk about simplicity since William brought it up. We are living in a society of overconsumption. It's not hard to look. When I drove to Fresno, city I've never been in, and I've been to many cities in America and all over the world, and I saw how many malls there are. There's no town centers anymore. The town centers are called Old Town, and the cities have put money into making them red bricks again and putting storefronts in the Old Town. Sacramento has an Old Town that I went to. But these temples to materialism are the malls. And there's nowhere you can go that you're not within a mile and a half of a mall. We buy too much. So what did I do? I called a moratorium on buying anything new for 18 months. My necessities, food, I put off buying anything. That was one thing. Then I went through my closet and I just weaned stuff that I had not worn for 5 or 10 years, even 10 years. Somebody gave me a birthday present when I was 60, I think. 10 years later, I finally recycled it. You can downsize without losing your size. There's a lot we have that we don't need. And then TV, radio, television, news media are always trying to sell us something. We don't need it. How many people know, what's the comedian, the really funny comedian who I quote in my book? Help me here. Yeah, about stuff. He gave a talk about stuff. Yeah. Yeah, he's dead now. What, George Carlin? Familiar with George Carlin? He does a funny thing on stuff. He says, we only have houses to hold our stuff. And when we go somewhere else, we take our stuff with us. And then we have to set our stuff up just like it was in our other place. It's pointless. It's needless. It made me look at my stuff. And I moved 6 months ago to another place in Berkeley, and I looked at my stuff. And thank God I have a daughter who looked at these things and said, "Dad, you really need the Encyclopedia Britannica? This is all online now, Dad." "Oh, really?" So I gave them away. You recycle it. You just don't throw them out. That's another way. So moratorium on buying. Clean out your closet and give it away. Recycle it to secondhand stores. Don't give in to the sales pitch, like you need this. And now, thank God for the internet, ha ha ha. If you look up something online, every third time you see a message to buy this or stay there or go there. And now they have screens, you can eliminate these things, but then there's another app you have to get. So I'm apped out. I can say now I'm minusing apps. If I had, I had for a while an app called Telegram. I have WhatsApp because I have so many international friends, but then somebody said, get Telegram, get Line, get this, get that. I don't need it. Truly, less is more, because you can savor the few things you have rather than just, oh, I have a BMW. Yeah, but do you drive it? I had a BMW in the 70s. I thought I was the big kahuna, One time, my wife and I had a Volkswagen Fastback and a BMW 2002. The BMW broke down, and we had to push the Beamer to the mechanic with the Volkswagen. And I realized, less is more. You didn't need the BMW. It was a status symbol. Okay, what else? Faith, simplicity, vegetarianism. This is another example of, I grew up in a meat and potatoes family. It was like a symbol, just like the BMW. It was a symbol of success, of luxury. My dad was very proud of the way he made a steak on the grill and his homemade tomatoes and corn. And that was his big Saturday, Sunday deal, and we'd invite people over. When I decided to try to become Gandhi, I became a vegetarian for a while. The night before I went on, began my journey, I went to a place, Ruth Chris Steakhouse, and I bought myself, I was in Jersey City, New Jersey, and I took myself out because this was going to be like the Last Supper. And I ordered a petite filet mignon. And I still was eating meat, and I like meat. I took 2 bites. Now with my new consciousness, after 2 bites, I was thinking, what's the big whoop? And it began to taste like leather, like I was chewing leather. I'm not the type who thinks of the animal that was killed. It's just a sensation in the mouth. And I came to realize, just like these other things, we build up what a steak means. It's like a symbol of you can afford to buy a steak. It's a sign of success. It's not that. And then all the research about arteriosclerosis and how red meat hurts your whole cardiological system. P.S. My dad had 2 heart attacks from being the meat and potatoes guy. And when he came out, his cardiologist said, "Per," and I'd already been studying meditation. He said, "Per, it's all in the mind." And it was such a profound statement from this guy who knew nothing about Hinduism, Buddhism. He was Jewish and practiced, but he grew up in the suburbs of New Jersey. But he got it. He needed his cardiologist to convince him. And there are now weightlifters, and you always read about wrestlers and Olympic swimmers who are vegetarians and don't need the protein. They find the protein in other sources. garbanzo beans, for Christ's sake. I mean, for God's sake, for heaven's sake. Uh, I'll find the right. Yeah, there are other ways. And now, to be quite honest, I'm a pescatarian. I know Gandhi ji would not, move me to the front of the class, but I had to find my balance, my tapering. So I don't eat chicken, I don't eat red meat, I don't eat pork. Dinner last night, I ordered a fish dish with my vegetarian host. She was nice enough not to scold me about it a little bit. But this is what we do. We just try. We try to become a little better with all of these things. But lastly, and then I want to open up to lots of questions and answers. Celibacy. In Hindi, it's called brahmacharya. It was not a problem for me because I wasn't with a girlfriend. I was single for the whole time. I still am. Anybody who's interested. And, here's what I did with it personally. So I wasn't going to have sex with anybody. There was nobody. But I looked at how we're bombarded with sexual messaging. The girl in the bikini who's sitting on top of the BMW. I didn't even know there was a BMW. I just saw the girl in the bikini. That's how, insidious and subliminal the messaging is. The phrase sex sells, Madison Avenue. So when I saw myself going toward those, I just wean myself. I turn away. I had a conversation with some guys about how when they walk, and you see like little memes and little YouTube moments where the guy is walking with his girlfriend and he sees a beautiful woman walk by and he turns back to check her out from the back. That's so sexist. So those kinds of things, I took note. I'm all about noticing my behavior and making adjustments therein. What else do I want to say? Two last things, and then I'd love to hear what you think. So Gandhi's famous, less. Gandhi is famous for a lot of his famous sayings. Be the change you want to see in the world. I talk about it in my book, and I see how people have co-opted that phrase. I've interviewed a woman whose YouTube tarot page is called Be the Change. So I interviewed her and I said, what do you know about Mahatma Gandhi? She knew very little except for that line, but she found solace in it. It was like her anchor to try to change. And she told me this poignant story about, the husband who beat her up and she had to leave him. But she bought the idea that we can change. And then I interviewed Gandhi's grandson, who was Arun Gandhi, who died like 4 years ago. He founded a Gandhi Institute for Peace and Nonviolence at the University of Rochester, where I interviewed him. He was a 30-year veteran of the Times of India, and he told me he wrote most of Gandhi's famous quotes. He said, Bapu, which means father, his grandfather, had said things like that, but it took Arun the ability to refine them and trim them and make them really readable. Be the change you want to see in the world. And this one that comes up with every day now since this war has been declared. Who knows this one? An eye for an eye. Amen. An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. This relates to nonviolence, truth, everything. And in the end, I realized all of these 6 components, they're not necessarily Gandhi's principles. They're the principles of anybody who is trying to find a way to live morally. Gandhi concretized them. He brought them together, and in his book, my autobiography, he gives a great lawyer's explanation of why. But the how, I felt, was up to me. And finally, so my book, at the end of every chapter, there's a little section called How to Gandhi. And I'm just going to read one. And I didn't want to write a how-to book. But when my publisher, my editor, read them, the whole book, she loved it. She said, one day she said, one page I cried, the next page I laughed. A writer wants to hear that. But she said, I wish you could sum up, like tell people how to be Gandhi. So I came up with this thing called How to Gandhi, which I meant tongue in cheek, but it resonated so well. I'm just going to read one. How to Gandhi mindfully. So how can we attain Gandhihood? The first step is to forget all about that as a goal. Let's take it day by day, adding one good thing, eliminating one bad thing. Keep your eye on the moral compass. When you see yourself losing your way, as I have many times, gently steer yourself in a direction that leans towards the winds of change. That word again. Don't try to take on all 6 of these at once. You will crash and burn. Committing to them and then avoiding them like a plague will only lay more guilt on your head, as if you didn't need to feel bad enough about yourself. See this as a process, not a product. Pick a moral a day or a week or a month. Spend time in your day contemplating what you can do to address it and then act on it. It's not enough to just think about it. There needs some action from it, and that's what Gandhi was all about. And then act on it. Enjoy the ride, or at least enjoy the ride at first. It's never too late to start, never too early to take steps to change. Use these 6 principles and Gandhi himself, my life is my message, as a prism through which you can examine all the dimensions and implications of living a moral life personally and globally. This is an experiment, so there will be many fails, but as the old Zen counsel goes, fall down 7 times, get up 8. And on that note, I'd like to just end. I'd like to hear thoughts and questions or answers. Anybody? Ma'am? Hi. Thank you. Thank you.
He's been called a racist for calling African Americans and South Africans as dirty and savages. And his celibacy and his baricharam, as you correctly put, the practice, he tested that by sleeping naked next to his grandnieces. So I want to ask how you can choose to continue to advocate for a man who I've achieved almost all of these principles without his guidance. How you can choose to advocate for him as a vessel for these values that are important to everyday life. How you can choose him as a vessel when he's proven throughout history that he is not the man who he claimed to be.
Thank you for your comments. I'm going to answer this. I know all this. I have separated Gandhi, the human being who's flawed, from the principles. And if you can kind of suspend, your feelings for a second, I was able to do that because I'm a journalist. I did the back research. I read everything about him sleeping with his nieces, next to his nieces, who themselves has written about it. There was no touching. And in my book, yes, no touching. In my book, I mentioned that he had sexual hang-ups. I can feel this in the way he wrote and in the experiences and what some of his nieces wrote. But he was flawed, and he so that's one thing. He was not accused of having sex with those women, and they refuted that altogether. And what I write about is that his book is called My Experiment. This was, in my mind, an experiment that famously was flawed. It was like stupid. It showed me that he didn't understand what sex was, an expression of true love. He thought, erroneously, if he would get aroused, and that if he didn't, then it proved he was celibate. BS. He didn't have the emotional connection. So that goes back to the man, his relationships with his parents, all of that. So I'm going to put that one aside. In terms of the accusations that he was racist in South Africa, he used the term savage. My explanation, and I'm not trying to justify it, but I can compare it to my life. He was using phrases that he had picked up because he was an Anglophile at that point. He was only in his 20s when he went to India. So over the 25 years, in the beginning, he was that guy you're talking about. His vision of what the Zulus and the other tribal people were changed. I myself, I could have been a racist myself. And growing up in New Jersey, my high school graduating class had 0 black people, 0 people of color. We were, everybody was either Jewish or Italian. Italian isn't a religion, but, you know, we were like a 2 ethnic group community. Now, West Orange, the town I'm talking about, is 27% black. Change, be the change. So I'm not justifying what he did or said, I'm just giving you a journalist's answer to the evidence I found. And I was, you know, I followed the Black Lives Movement. I supported it. All over Berkeley, there's signs in front of everybody's house. This house, you know, believes in Black Lives Movement. I'm going to say something that I hope isn't considered racist. We had a black woman come to clean the house, and she had there's a word in Yiddish. It's called Schwarze. There's a wine called Schwarze Katze. It means black. Schwarze Katze is black cat wine. My dad would say, "Is the Schwarze coming?" There was no connotation that she was less than us. We loved her. Her name was Beulah. I mean, how classic a name like that is for a black woman. But we changed, and Gandhi did change. So I say, keep the values, just like with Cesar Chavez. It's a shame of what has happened. And yet, he should be condemned for all of that. But can you hold on to what Cesar Chavez did for the Latinos up and down this valley without, you know, going there? Do you have something to say?
There's an
Gandhi for what he's done, while also continue to practice, preach his values of Hinduism and Buddhism?
Yes, I think I was clear about that.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor. First of all, I want to thank Professor Howard for bringing us all together, being such a terrific scholar. Thank you. I loved your talk because not only you're a good writer, you spoke through.
Go ahead.
That's okay. You spoke through your personal experience and saw a lot of humility in there. So I will buy your book. I don't know about others. Maybe 2 books, maybe 1 other.
If you buy it now, I sign it.
Yes, I have my cash here. Give me 2 minutes. And I have a quick sharing to do.
Okay.
My grandfather was a freedom fighter in India who died fighting for India's freedom movement. So he knew Gandhi. They were not best friends or anything, but I'm personally very touched. So my family has been impacted. And he also believed in satyagraha, in peace. And so I've seen the impact of giving up life for sacrifice through my own blood, through my ancestors. And so I really regard the philosophy of Gandhi. I'm not a scholar on Gandhi, so I can't claim to know the questions and answers you've had beautifully, but I do know the power, the courage that he, I think, instilled in many people. So my question is that satyagraha and ahimsa, the truth, and ahimsa is peace, or as you said, or nonviolence. I think they are both, if I'm not wrong, influenced by Jainism, the religion in India, which is separate or connected to Hinduism in many ways. Has Gandhi spoken about that? Because you mentioned he was a devout Hindu, but has he spoken about his influence of Jainism? And so just comments on that. Thank you.
Yes, some of this I'll answer, but then I'd like to defer to Dr. Howard.
Yes.
Yeah, he was from this family. His mother was this esoteric branch. Jain and Vaishnavas, in my mind, and you're going to clarify, are a little intertwined. It's hard to separate one from the other. Jain is even more rigorous than Vaishnavas. But I interviewed a Jain in Benares. He was so, rigorous. He explained to me that even Jains of a royal class are not allowed to eat in front of people. Is this, yeah? And I thought, that's weird. What is so sacrilege about eating? It's like Jews. We are all about Indians. We're all about eating. Yeah. But I never got the real explanation. I think maybe that's a kind of lower chakra kind of experience, eating. I'm not sure. But I'd like to ask you to respond to this. Jainism. Yes. And Gandhi.
Yes, so Jainism is very influential on Gandhi. So his mother went to Jain teachers. So when Gandhi comes to South Africa, before it comes to England, he takes him to a Jain Muni and says, take 3 vows. And vow is not to, because he's married already, so be vegetarian, no other woman you will go to, and you will have no alcohol. In front of the Jain Muni, he takes those vows, and he keeps them all his life. And the Jainism becomes a very, very important. I teach courses on Jain and Hindu philosophy here as well, so that's a very excellent question. What's your name? What the first question?
Sorry?
What's your name?
Why?
Because I want to address you by name. Ganeer. I appreciate your question, and as a scholar, sometime, if you can, my email should be vehoward@csufresno.edu. I will love to talk. And I have researched on those areas very, very closely. So I'm happy. I love those difficult questions and think about. So just to say. And there are several people in this audience who have read your book. And so we had a book club. We had 23 people who read your book. And some of them will come tomorrow too. Some of them are here. So I want to give them opportunity. If you have any questions, comments as you were reading the book, or because the author is here. And afterwards, we can have a book signing for those who have book or those who want to purchase the book. We got 23 books from the Gandhi Center, and we gave it to participants in the book club. And then tomorrow, we have another event at noon, lunch with Perry, and Provost Fu will be there as well. So if you want to come that time, have pizza and cookie, vegetarian food, not no pepperoni, sorry. So any questions? So this is actually the same question that I brought up in the book group when we read it.
And that is you're kind of finishing one of your journeys in India, and you have a conversation with Professor Desai, asking him questions, and I was really startled out of my reading, the same way you and your friend Liz were, when he claims, oh, you Americans or whatever, you're so interested in your isms, it's all about you. And he said, go sit in an ashram and carry on with yourself, which is kind of funny. And I did not get the impression that you had a great idea of how to handle that by the end of the paragraph. And I was wondering if in the intervening time, if you'd kind of thought about his words and come to some sort of peace about what he had said.
So Professor Desai is a sociologist who wrote a book. Remind me the title of the book. It's the Stretcher Bearer, something or other, ma'am. And he was anti-Gandhi, and he found reasons to be anti-Gandhi. And then where it blew up there was, what is it?
South African Gandhi, Stretcher Bearer of Empire.
Right. I asked him, aside from all that, how do you feel about Gandhi's principles? Do you follow them? What do you think of them? And he kind of blew up. And he said, well, first of all, I think I wrote this, they're not Gandhi's principles. They're universal beliefs about how to live a moral life. But then he said, you Americans, when I asked him this question, what do you practice? He didn't want to address that. Maybe because he was a sociologist. Maybe he had these feelings about Gandhi because of the racist things he did say in his 20s and 30s. But what struck me was, I didn't take it personally, like, oh, me, the American, had to make it about me. I'm a reporter. I'm just like a mirror of what the people in front of me are saying, and then I'm left in my room to figure what the heck it meant. I was at peace with it, and afterwards, we shook hands, we had a hug, we were engaged in intellectual debate. And as I sensed, that was what he was about. He didn't want to answer these questions. What does he practice? What kind of faith does he have? What is his moral compass? He was a sociologist. That's what struck me. But it really took me aback. And Liz was filming all this. And I said, did you get that? Did you get that? Because that was the reporter in me. Okay, one or two more. I would like to ask you in the back, what's your name again? Yeah, Jake. So what's the difference between what you read of my book, Jake, and my presentation here?
The difference? Well, the book is much more in-depth, I think, right?
More what?
In-depth. You get...
Sure.
Yeah. But I think you hit most of the points pretty cohesively. The only thing that I think you left out that I missed was a quote by Gandhi that I really enjoyed in the book. I think it's... he's talking to somebody and he's asked what he thinks of Western civilization, and Gandhi says, "I think it's a good idea."
I use that one all the time. Yeah. I think I put it on Facebook recently, and that alongside an eye for an eye, fits. I mean, if you read nothing else or you listen to no other quotes from Gandhi, walk away with that. What do you think of Western civilization? It would be a good idea. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, last question before we turn into pizza.
One more question?
Sure.
Yes, Dr. Jandian. So one second, Dr. Jandian is our star at Fresno State. Emma Hughes is a star who is a great, teaches in prisons. Dr. Raja Rosenhagen, who teaches peace and conflict studies. All these great scholars. So one second. So Dr. Jandian always makes time to come to these talks, no matter how busy he is. So I have to lift him up.
He's going to...
I had to run from
I saw you
some
running.
other students. But I thank you for your presentation. I thank you for your questions, too, critical and included. I'm a sociologist, so I felt compelled to speak out here.
I knew you had
because
a hidden
not
agenda.
all of us are
Hello?
believe in Weber's idea of being completely objective. In fact, I think that's impossible for anyone to be completely objective, and we can recognize our biases, and conduct research, but realize that we're still looking at it through different lens. And I appreciate your recognition of we're all products of our environment and our socialization.
We all bring our baggage, but then the discerning part of us has to separate that out.
And that's what we say in NCBI training, for those of you familiar with the National Coalition Building Institute, right? That your first thought is your socialization. It's not necessarily who you are, right? It's your second thought that determines what and action. And I think there's probably not a person in here who doesn't regret something they've either said or done at some point in their life. And so I want to ask specifically, because we just took down Cesar Chavez's statue. I don't know if okay.
I know all about it.
And so there's a lot of people who will say that we shouldn't name anything after anybody because you just leads to disappointment. And I think that's a bad idea, because I think we need to hold up individuals. We just need to not put them on a superhero or godlike pedestal, because they are human beings and they are flawed. But where's that line drawn? To celebrate, right? Because it gives us role models to aspire to. Otherwise, we say, oh, yeah, nobody can do it, so it's not worth even trying.
Great question, and I'm going to answer it with a question. In fact, Dr. Howard walked me through the Peace Garden, and we see all these statues, and we were both thinking, she was saying, I was thinking, the key word is education. So if under each statue there was some kind of bronze explanation, not of the man, like he was born in 1869 and lived here, but what he represented. The representation is the bigger part. Years ago, Robert E. Lee's statue was taken down in the South. My feeling as a working journalist is you can't negate the history. Just like you can't deny that racism, was part of the American ethos. We fought a war about it. The war is still going on. So that's partly my answer, that as you were talking, I was thinking we need to be educated about who these people, not what their day-to-day eating habits were, but what they stood for. In fact, I'm a writer, so everything is a metaphor. I have a talk about the walking stick, which is a metaphor for support, community. Gandhi always walked with that. But so I think we need to, you as educators, and as you as future educators, or as future educated, should talk about the values, the principles, and there should be, these statues around should have some explanation. Why is this guy important? Why is this woman important? There aren't enough women's statues. We should, and I would turn the table, that's what I was going to say. I answer with a question. What are you as educators doing about educating the next gen or this gen? This group is multi-generational. I really appreciate the elders of the community here as much as the up-and-coming elders. But it's a tough question, and I think that we need to just continue to do this education piece. I'd love to talk to you more. Okay. Thank you very much. We've come to the end here.
And I love the way you ended with education. That's the reason I said, we want to educate, we want to learn, not to just put people on pedestals and just see, let's worship them. No, they're historical figures, they're people in flesh and blood. I just wrote an op-ed today it's out to GV Wire, and talk about Gandhi as an idea Martin Luther King Jr. as an idea that we fight against injustice, the idea that we stand up against racism, the idea that we still ask questions about human figures. So I think that's the whole way that we can educate, critically think about it, but also not throw away our history on the shoulders that I can stand in this room because of all these people who made a lot of sacrifices. We cannot be here. I mean, I know that I could not be here if it weren't to Gandhi, who didn't bring women out of the domestic sphere and brought them to the public, regardless of his failings and fallings and flaws. And we scholars know a lot more. So come and talk to me, and we can have a great discussion. So tomorrow, and I want to acknowledge our First Lady, my colleague. I tease her with she hates that name. Because our President's spouse, Dr. Mariana A. I have a hard time with your last name. She came the whole time. She had a very busy day, but so all of colleagues, friends, students, thank you for coming, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good evening. Thank you so much.